What's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today, doing the what's next on Jaron Ennis, the undefeated top welterweight contender right now. He is on the rise. He took on Thomas Dulorme on the undercard, the Showtime undercard on October 30th as in the co-feature, and he absolutely destroyed Dulorme in only one round. I do agree that first knockdown was at the result of a punch behind the head, but it wasn't Ennis's fault. It was the way Dulorme kind of leaned forward and Ennis was already throwing the punch. So I'm not knocking Ennis for that, for that. I think he would have knocked Dulorme out anyways. So I don't think a rematch or anything should be done, because I heard Dulorme's filing a protest or something of that nature. But be that as it may, impressive win by Jaron Ennis. That's back-to-back now, following his destruction of Sergey Lipinets earlier this year, who was a former champ at 140 and a tough contender. And now Ennis, to be honest, I got Jaron Ennis like at number 5. He's number 5 for me because of that knockout over Lipinets and the knockout of now Dulorme. I got him behind the big 4 at welterweight, which are Spence, Crawford, Porter, and Ugas. So this guy is right there, and he's trying to line himself up for a title shot. He's a big guy at 147, so he might get avoided by the top tier guys at 147. He might have to move up to 154 to really make a name for himself, but he's trying at 147. The thing is he's going to have to mandate a title shot to get in the ring with one of the big guys, and he might be able to do that sooner rather than later, because your Ennis Ugas is not solid that he wants to fight Stanionis in this 4-man box-off. Razab Butayev upset Jamal James and captured the WBA regular belt. Now the winner of that is supposed to fight the winner of Ugas and Stanionis. But say Ugas were to give up his belt to fight Errol Spence instead for the unified championship, then that means what's his name becomes the official champion. Butayev does, and then they would probably make Stanionis fight a guy like Jaron Ennis, and the winner would take on Butayev. So I think Ennis needs to continue to go down this road, because I really believe that your Porter is Porter's fighting Crawford, and then you got Ugas and Spence potentially fighting. We don't know yet. They could fight, but I really think that Porter should. Ennis should just go down this road. But let's run through the top 10 and see what possibly could be next for the undefeated top welterweight contender right now. We start with number 1, the undefeated unified champ Errol Spence Jr. This fight's not going to happen next. Spence wants to fight for, wants to unify belts with your Ennis Ugas. He's trying to make that happen. Doesn't look like it's going to happen according to the WBA. You never know, though. They might make an exception. But I really believe Spence is going to be going after his mandatory, shake off some rust. He hasn't fought since December of last year. I think he'll make a mandatory next and then move forward towards something else after that. But that's what I think Spence is going to do. I don't think he has any interest in Ennis right now. Number 2 is the undefeated WBO champion, Terrence Bud Crawford. Crawford taking on Sean Porter later on this month in November, here on November 20th. And then I really believe Crawford's going to be focusing on some of the other big names at 147, possibly Josh Taylor. I don't think he has Jaron Ennis on his radar right now either. Next, the tie for 3rd, we got former champion Sean Porter, former champion Sean Porter sitting there. He's fighting Terrence Crawford. If he upsets Crawford, I think there's no doubt in my mind that Porter is going to go after Errol Spence after that, if he were to upset Crawford or possibly fight him in a rematch. But I really don't think Porter is looking at Ennis either. Also tied for 3rd is WBA super champion Ennis Ugas. Ugas is going to either compete in a 4-man box-off, or he's going to be going after the unified title that Errol Spence holds. But I really don't believe he has any interest either right now in taking on Jaron Ennis. And that puts Ennis at number 5. So number 6 is, I got Radzab Butayev just ahead of Virgil Ortiz for number 6. And Butayev, it could be Ennis. He could fight Jaron Ennis because, again, that scenario that I just gave. We could see Ugas give up his super title and go after Errol Spence just to get that fight next. Ugas has openly said that he does not want to compete in this 4-man box-off coming off the win over Manny Pacquiao. So I absolutely believe that we could be seeing Ugas and Spence fight next, and it could actually be for the super title to unify belts. It might not be. It might just be it might just be for the unified belt that Spence already has. So he might give up that belt. But I absolutely don't think that Ugas has any interest in Ennis. So that means Ennis might move to the front of the line. He might have to beat Stanionis next and then fight Butayev later on next year. But yeah, I mean, it could end up being for Ennis. It might not be Butayev in his next fight, but it could be right after that. So he might continue down that path. We'll see. Number 7, Virgil Ortiz Jr., undefeated. Not seeing this one. He's a Golden Boy guy. I don't think they're going to risk Ortiz to fight Ennis just yet. This was a fight that might happen sometime in the next couple years. But right now, I think it's that kind of fight between the two youngsters, undefeated, that they're going to want to build a little bit more. So I'm not seeing this one next. I'm going to say no. And he was number 7. Number 8 now is, I want to say, I think I moved Josecito Lopez up and Jamal James. Oh, Danny Garcia is still floating around in there. I'm not sure if he's 8 or not. He's in that area. I don't think he's got no interest in Jaron Ennis. Danny Garcia is moving up to 154 in his next fight. I don't think he has any interest in Jaron Ennis, even though they're both at PBC. Number 9, Josecito Lopez. Maybe. He's an older guy, former world title challenger. Lopez might give a guy like Jaron Ennis the time of day. But I think Al Heyman's really going to have to pay Josecito Lopez a lot of money. Because I think Lopez is one of those guys that, like, he might be in line to fight Errol Spence next. If Errol Spence is allowed to make an optional defense before unifying belts, Lopez might be one of those guys. I think Lopez is waiting around to fight one of those bigger name opponents. He might not get it, so Lopez might be forced into fighting a guy like Ennis, so I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm leaning towards the no. And then number 10 is the former regular champion, Jamal James. He's coming off that loss now to Butayev. I don't think Jamal James coming off a loss is going to want to have anything to do with Jaron Ennis, so I'm going to say no. So overall, I don't know. Ennis is going to be avoided. He's going to be avoided. It's just that simple. Not a lot of guys are going to want to fight him. He didn't get put into that 4-man box-off, but he might be able to slip in through the back door of that 4-man box-off. And if Ugas, again, gives up that WBA Super Championship, then Ennis could be directly in line to fight to fight for the title at some point. He might have to fight Stanionis instead. He might have to take Ugas' spot, fight Stanionis, and then the winner fights Butayev middle to second half of next year. But either way, to go after and get a world title should be the goal, because that's the only way to force these other guys into fighting him. And I think he's going to be unavoidable if he can still make the welterweight limit when the smoke clears from Spence, Crawford, Ugas, and Porter now. One of those guys, I believe, between Crawford and Porter, one of those guys is going to be knocked off of that tier, that top tier. Then you're only going to have 3, and eventually 2 of those guys are going to fight each other, maybe Spence and Ugas. Second half of next year, we might be seeing Spence and Crawford, and then the winner, might be looking towards the youngster's name, Jaron Ennis. We just had to wait and see. But Ennis, his best opportunity is to force it by becoming a mandatory challenger. So even the IBF top contender, Kudryatov something, a Russian fighter, undefeated. That might be, the IBF might enforce Ennis to fight him. You just don't know. But he's coming off of 2 impressive wins against guys right at the, Lipinets was a legitimate top 10 guy at the time, and Dulorme was a top 10 guy up until last year. So, you know, in welterweight is still a great division. So Jaron Ennis, a lot working for him. That's what's next on him. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.